Andy Johnson, Minnesota State University. Topic of this YouTube is Louisa Moats, saint or sinner, prophet or profiteer, scholar or dollar, for people or for profit, and letters. Is it science or snake oil? Is Louisa Moats the Tucker Carlson of reading instruction, or is she the Moses of reading instruction? The question I put to you is this: is she willfully ignorant, purposely dishonest, simply confused, or one of the most outstanding literacy scholars in the last 2,000 years? I don't know, but I'm going to let you decide. I am focusing this YouTube on the good Dr. Moats. She's the author of Letters, the Professional Development Program. And I'm doing that because many gullible turkeys are gobbling up her gobbledygook. And many state legislatures are actually introducing bills to make letters training mandatory. And many school administrators are wasting valuable tax dollars to enrich Cambrian learning, which is behind letters. So let's take a look at this. Let's look at the sources Dr. Moats used, how she interpreted the sources, and how she used the sources. Now, Louisa Moats is the author. Again, Letters is described as a professional learning course for instructors of reading, spelling, and related language skills. It provides educators with in-depth knowledge and tools that they can use with any reading program. Nothing wrong with this. We can all agree that legitimate, continuing professional development for practicing teachers is a very good thing. It's not possible to create a finished teaching product in any 3 semesters of a teacher preparation program. So yes, on continuing legitimate professional development. Continuing means that it builds upon what's already been learned, and also continuing means that learning will continue to take place. Continuing means that it doesn't stop. The field changes. We all need to continue to learn new things and learn old things at higher levels. Now, I've been in education for almost 40 years, and I haven't even come close to learning all the things I want to learn and keep learning. I need to continue learning. We all do. But it needs to be legitimate continuing professional development. That means there's a strong connection to a wide body of research, and it's connected to and supported by a robust theoretical model. So, is Letters legitimate? I don't know. I'm not going to make that call. That's up to you to decide. But I am going to provide just a little background information here. The good Dr. Moats has courses and modules available for teachers. Nothing wrong with this. Courses and modules can be very good things. Some of my best friends have them. However, the cost is $1,545 per course and applicable fees. In addition to costs of tuition, each student must have a Letters textbook and online license. Now, think about this. $1,545 per course plus other fees. Think how many good books for a classroom you could buy for $1,545. Think about how many good textbooks about reading instruction you could buy for $1,545. Her Letters program has 12 modules. Now, is a course the same as a module? The website doesn't tell us. But we do know there's a lot of money changing hands here, and somebody has a financial incentive to say that Letters is the best thing in the world and will solve all reading problems. Letters is part of an organization called Lexia Learning, part of Cambrian Learning Group. net worth around $700 million. Now, if we all work really hard, we can help Cambrian learning get above the 700 million mark. And that's something we should all aspire to. Yes? Cambrian learning. Cambrian learning, $700 million. Now, in comparison to that, I'm part of a public university. I'm supported by tuition and public tax dollars. My net worth is considerably less than $700 million, extremely less. Now, whose voice speaks the loudest at state legislatures? A loud $700 million non-expert voice, or a quiet, nasally excited $2 voice of a literacy expert who spent 40 years working and doing scholarly work in the field of literacy instruction? A 700 million non-expert or a $2 expert? Who is going to be heard here? Now, my contract at Minnesota State University calls for me to engage in teaching, scholarship, and service. And as part of my service, I create podcasts and YouTube videos like this one I'm doing right now. And I don't get paid anything extra for preparing these. Consider this a public service announcement based on a whole bunch of scholarship. I'm doing what the state of Minnesota hired me to do 27 years ago, and that was to be and become a literacy instruction expert and to use my expertise to teach pre-service and practicing teachers and to move the field forward. Now, it's important to differentiate myself from Dr. Moats here. My motivation is not profit. I'm not getting paid anything extra to do this. I'm not trying to move product. I'm not trying to get internet views or listens or friends or clicks. And there's no ads on any of my videos or websites. I am an employee of the state, a public servant. The state of Minnesota pays me to be well informed on things like letters and to use my teaching and scholarship to move the field forward, not to make more money. So I do my job, and this is part of my job. Now, in various online forums, when I discuss letters and express my skepticism of letters, I'm sometimes asked the question, have you taken her course? Have you read her book? And this is a fair question. I've read much of Dr. Moats' previous work, but have I taken her course? Let me answer it this way. On the Letters website, Dr. Moats has a white paper and other material. Now, based on this white paper and the rest of the material on the website and the past work of Dr. Moats, it is my professional opinion, and just my opinion, mind you, that somebody would have to be an ill-informed, illiterate clown to want to spend any additional time or money for letters or letters material based on what I found here. Now, I recognize I certainly could be wrong, but her white paper seems to provide a stronger case for why somebody shouldn't give any time, money, or credence to letters. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Dr. Moats' white paper on the Lexia Learning website is called Literacy Professional Learning, Why It's Essential. And by the way, we all would agree with her here. Professional development related to all aspects of teaching, but especially teaching literacy, is essential. Nobody disagrees. However, some might say that professional development should be based on legitimate research and science, not I thinkisms, pseudoscience, and clownery. Legitimate research and science versus I thinkisms, pseudoscience, and clownery. Which category does the good Dr. Moats fall in? Again, I'm just presenting the facts. I will let you decide. But on this website, Essentially, it's an infomercial disguised as research if you go to her website. Now, everybody believes that literacy professional learning is essential. Everyone. In her white paper disguised as scholarly work, she lists 10 reasons to support this thesis. And again, everyone agrees with this. Everyone believes in it. It's the statements she uses to support this statement that is a bit disconcerting. It's the Weasley ways in which citations are used to support her thesis statement, which are also a bit confusing, troubling, head-scratching, disconcerting. So we'll examine how she uses supporting citations, and this will provide you some important clues as you consider the legitimacy of Dr. Moats and her for-profit claims related to her for-profit program letters. And here you see the 10 declarative statements to support her central thesis that literary professional learning is essential. Again, everybody agrees with this. And I'll eventually unpack all 10 of these statements, but here I'm going to just focus on statement number 1, and this will give us some clues. Declarative statement number 1. Prior coursework has been insufficient to prepare teachers for effective literacy instruction. A very strong claim. Prior coursework has been insufficient to prepare teachers for effective literacy instruction. All well and good. And we should be able to assume that she's able to back up this very strong claim with some solid peer review research. After all, we are scholars, not Fox News analysts. And scholars know they can't just go around saying stuff. Scholars know that they have to use legitimate and relevant sources and use them correctly to support their declarative statements. So let's see what the good Dr. Moats has to say. She uses 2 supporting statements to support her declarative statement, each one with references. Here are the supporting statements. Higher education teacher preparation courses often teach only some of the essential components of reading recommended by major consensus reports, such as that of the National Reading Panel. Okay, that's statement number 1. And supporting statement number 2, the majority of teacher preparation programs do not offer courses that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all of the essential skills involved. Here she cites 1 source, and here she cites 5 sources. So that's supporting statement number 1, and she cites the National Reading Panel report put out by the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. All well and good. Within this statement, within this first statement, there are 2 propositions. Proposition number 1 is that higher education teacher preparation courses often don't teach essential components of reading. And thesis number 2, essential components of reading have been identified by major consensus reports such as that of the National Reading Panel. These 2 propositions can be found within a single sentence. She uses a single citation for both propositions, thereby giving the impression that both propositions are supported by the same National Reading Panel citation. In other words, she's giving us the impression that there's strong research to support the proposition that higher education teacher preparation programs, like the one that I work in, are not teaching the right things. That's the for-profit impression that she wants to give us. But I am just a bit confused here, because in Chapter 5 of the NRP report, it focuses on teacher education and reading instruction. Great. It focuses both on pre-service teacher preparation courses and professional development for practicing teachers, both of those. There is nothing in the report related to the content of teacher preparation programs. Nothing. The only conclusion made in this report that both pre-service education and practicing professional development programs can be effective. That's it. That's all it says. So, did she actually read the report, or did she just sound out the words? That is the question. The first proposition: higher education teacher preparation courses often teach only some of the essential components simply is not something stated in the NRP report. It's not supported by the citations. So what are we to conclude? It seems to be something that the good Dr. Moats made up. The NRP citation she cleverly snuck in at the end of her sentence refers only to the 5 essential components of reading instruction identified by the NRP report. It has nothing to do with what is or is not taught in teacher preparation courses. It has nothing to do with how often essential components are not taught. And I don't know which is more disturbing, that Dr. Moats doesn't know better, or that Dr. Moats knows better and uses this citation anyway. So let's look then at her second supporting statement used to support that prior coursework is not sufficient in preparing teaching literacy effectively. You see that statement. The majority of teacher preparation programs do not offer courses that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all of the essential skills in reading. So let's unpack each of these, each of the propositions, the majority of teacher preparation programs. What does that mean? How many is the majority? Is that 51% or more? That's the majority. And how was that determined? It said that these do not offer courses, these programs that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all of the essential skills involved in reading. Okay, fair enough. But what is thoroughly prepared? Who defines that? How do we know what is and isn't thoroughly prepared? What are the essential skills, and who made the decision? And essential according to whom? So let's go through her 5 references. Reference number 1, you see it there, Brady et al. First grade teachers' knowledge of phonological awareness and code concepts, examining gains from an intensive form of professional development and corresponding teacher attitudes. Now notice the title here. Examining gains from an intensive form of professional development, teacher attitudes. What does that have to do with teacher education or programs? The title seems to indicate that it has nothing. However, I want to be fair, so I took a little peek at the abstract before I read the article. Let's see what the abstract might tell us. This study, it's a research, examined the efficacy of an intensive form of professional development for building the knowledge of first grade teachers in the areas of phonological awareness and phonics. Okay, they had a bunch of teachers, professional development, pre-post assessment, teacher knowledge survey, okay, what they know about phonological awareness and phonics, okay, good enough, and a teacher attitude survey, okay, and they found attitudes on a subtest of these factors, teachers' initial knowledge scores on the teacher knowledge survey, and years of teaching experience accounted for significant portions of the variance in performance on the teacher knowledge survey after training. What can we conclude here? Well, for this first reference, it's not at all related to the claim. Nothing there about teacher education programs and the courses they offer. It was a study on professional development for teachers. The knowledge pretest looked at knowledge of phonological awareness and phonics concepts, and the researchers found that knowledge of phonological awareness and phonics concepts accounted for higher post-test scores of knowledge of phonological awareness and phonics concepts. Who would have thought? So let's take a look at reference number 2. You see it there, and you see this is a publication from NCTQ, the National Council for Teacher Quality. This is not a reliable source. This uses junk science and propaganda. It calls itself the leading expert on teacher quality, but if you have to call yourself something, you're probably not that thing you call yourself. It's funded by 31 corporate entities. So we can conclude reference number 2, that is junk science and propaganda, no peer review, not a valid or reliable source. Obviously, conclusions are based on collecting data to support a pre-existing belief, and we know that collecting data is far different from research. Linda Darlene Hammond agrees with me, well-known researcher in education. Their methodology is a paper review of published course requirements and course syllabi against a checklist that does not consider the real quality of instruction that programs offer. Baloney, it's garbage. Okay, let's take a look at her third reference. Josie, Binks, Graham, Dean, Smith. Okay, do textbooks used in university reading education courses conform to the instructional recommendations of the National Reading Panel? All right, this comes from the Journal of Learning Disabilities. This is an established peer-reviewed journal. However, this study appears to be looking at textbooks in reading education courses and their alignment, the alignment of the textbooks with the NRP recommendations. But let's see what the abstract tells us. I read the abstract before I read the article. Okay, it looks at linguistic concepts. The authors examine the extent to which textbooks used in reading education courses contain the information about 5 components of literacy instruction, and you see the big 5 there. Such scrutiny shows that many textbooks do not adequately cover these 5 components and the related instructional procedures for teaching them. In addition to the paucity of information about teaching the 5 components, some textbooks present inaccurate information. Okay, I understand that. I understand that completely. But this is a study that focuses on textbooks. They looked at 17 textbooks from 5 well-known textbook publishers that they selected. Textbooks are not a curriculum. Textbooks are tools often used with other sources. No single textbook covers everything the way any instructor wants unless the instructor writes their own textbooks. And the assertion that linguistic concepts or linguistic knowledge is necessary to effectively teach reading is an I thinkism based on their experience. Is there any scientifically derived data that says this is a significant variable, linguistic concepts, in determining the quality of reading instruction? So this does not support the supporting statement or declarative statement that Dr. Moats makes. All right? It was a subjective analysis of 17 textbooks. quite a stretch to use this study to support the case that the majority of teacher education courses or programs, and a course is different than a textbook, do not offer courses that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all the essential skills involved in reading. I made a mistake there, you'll have to forgive me. But again, textbooks are a tool, they are not a curriculum. Most professors bring in their own material besides that. Okay, let's take a look then at our next source. Why elementary teachers might be inadequately prepared to teach reading. Okay, we might be getting someplace. Finally, this seems to be related to declarative statement number 1 and supporting statement number 2. Okay, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves, but let's take a look first at the abstract. Several national reports have suggested the usefulness of systematic, explicit, synthetic phonics based on English word structure, along with wide reading of quality literature for strong support. Okay, that many in-service teachers are not knowledgeable in the basic concepts of the English language. All right, they may be well versed in children's literature, but not know how to address the basic blocks of language in reading. Okay, so the premise here is instructors responsible for training future elementary teachers aren't familiar with the concepts of the linguistic features of the English language. And apparently these features are essential. And again, we have not made that connection. They found that teacher educators perform poorly on concepts related to morphemes and phonemes. All right, let's take a look at that. There, in the first study, study number 1, there were 2 studies in this paper, 2 studies. So let's look at study number 1. They were designing a survey to ask how familiar university instructors were with something that they decided was imperative for teaching reading effectively. Linguistic features of the English language, they said, are imperative. So they found that survey participants performed poorly on their survey that they made up, asking questions about concepts related to morphemes and phonemes. So apparently you need to know concepts. It's essential that you know what a morpheme and a phoneme is, and you understand the concepts. That is the study based on the design. Was there any selection bias here? Let's look at who took their survey, and this is based on a survey. She's making generalizations based on a survey of 78 college and university instructors who taught reading courses. All right, 68 doctoral degrees, 10 were okay. All had previously taught in elementary schools. And teaching in an elementary school does not make one a literacy expert. All right, know that. Currently teaching 2 to 4 courses in reading education. Okay, lots of people teach reading courses. 30 different universities and community colleges from the southwestern United States. She's making a generalization to all teacher preparation programs, or the majority of teacher preparation programs. From 30 of these in the southwestern United States, how many were universities? How many were colleges? How many were community colleges? It does make a difference. And these 78 came from different departments. And this is telling because one's department impacts the paradigm used to teach. There was educational psychology, not really reading. There was curriculum and instruction, okay. Special education, not reading. English as a second language, no. There was reading. Ed administration, nope. Ed leadership, no. And teaching experience, 1 to 20 years. It doesn't indicate how many had 1 and how many had 20. All right. So let's take a look then at the second study. 40 instructors were interviewed about best practices in teaching components and sub-skills of reading. 80% of instructors defined phonological awareness as letter-sound correspondence. They also did not mention synthetic phonics as a desirable method. Providing professional development experiences related to language concepts to instructors could provide them the necessary knowledge of language concepts related to early literacy instruction, which they could integrate. Okay, well, what does that have to do with the quality of teacher preparation programs? This was a survey with 12 questions related to the cause of reading disability, mailed to 40 instructors, not instructions. Doesn't tell us many. Teaching experience, okay? 80% of survey respondents didn't define it the right way, according to them. 80% didn't mention synthetic phonics is a desirable method for beginning reading instruction. And by the way, synthetic phonics is not a method. It's one type of phonics instruction used along with analytic phonics and large unit phonics. All of them should be included. The conclusion of their study was providing professional development experiences related to language concepts to instructors could provide them the necessary knowledge of language concepts. That has nothing to do with that and that. That has nothing to do with that or that, but yet it's cited as saying so. So we can conclude with this fourth reference. The authors of this study didn't generalize these results as Dr. Moats did. She shouldn't have. It's a stretch to use this to say that teacher preparation programs do not offer courses that thoroughly prepare teachers to build all the essential skills involved in reading. That citation is improperly used. All right, let's take a look at the fifth reference. This is like the second reference. It's junk science, propaganda, no peer review, not a valid or reliable source. Obviously, the conclusions were based on collecting data to support a predetermined or pre-existing belief. So, what can we conclude? Well, you decide. But based on the analysis of just one of her 10 declarative statements, what might you reasonably conclude? Louisa Moats, saint or sinner, prophet or profiteer, scholar or dollar, for people or for profit, letters, is it science or is it snake oil?